Okay. Now it's $7.39. September 17th of 2025. It was $7.75, but now it's $7.39. Isn't that interesting? Okay, September 17th, right? Of 2025. Right. This is what I'm thinking to buy for Amari, because I'm going to try something different in terms of his food groups when it comes to those staples that I can build in. I don't know what these social workers are thinking, but like, I fell asleep. Yesterday I was really tired. I'm still kind of tired, right? And I slept a little bit, right? And I got up and I did a little bit of stuff, and then I didn't really push myself. And then I went, laid down, and I ate a little bit of the pork chop, just enough to put me to sleep. I couldn't finish it again, right? And I like cold pork chops. So anyway, I fell asleep, and then I got up at 2:30, and then I did dishes, basically, and all that, you know, wipe down counters, yada yada. Not quite done yet. And I got the washing machine ready with a load of rags. I cleaned up that little cubby area, you know, by the kitchen sink, which gets really bonked up because, you know, the washing machine's in there, and okay, whatever. So I poked around in there, and then I don't know, I guess I went back to sleep. Oh, I don't remember. 6 o'clock or something like that. 6:30 maybe, I don't know. With that story in the background, right? To help me to just calm my mind down, you know? So I'm going in and out of sleep, right? Amari was moving around, whatever. He was doing that little twitching thing again. Yeah, it doesn't do it all the time, only sometimes. So, okay, whatever, calm that down. And then, I woke up. Oh, I don't know. I looked to see what was going on with YouTube with that $7.39 now. It was $7.75, now it's $7.39. So I'm curious to see what happens there. And then I came back on TNT to look at my order again, because I'm debating whether I should do this canning for collagen purposes. I'm doing this strictly for to make collagen a high, I guess, I don't know, just a high concentration of collagen. Now, I do pig's feet and jelly, which is a high concentration of gelatin, but that's a different animal, right? And I make that in batches. Like he just had that last week, and we grind that into his food, right? Okay, but that's not enough. It's not enough. And then, of course, I seen a video on YouTube with some Chinese doctor, Japanese doctor, or some doctor like that, talking about collagen in elderly people with the loss of muscles and whatnot, right, because of aging. So, of course, I'm dealing with loss of muscles here, right? Not activity. He's very active, and, you know, he's alert, and he never hardly ever gets sick. He gets a cold once or twice a year, and he only has it for a day or two. The only time he ever really gets fevers is when he goes to the hospital and gets x-rays. It's true. That is so true. Or he'll come home from the hospital after having an x-ray, and then he'll break out on a fever. Either or, he only gets sick maybe once or twice a year, if that, and that would be a cold. And he's only had one bout, I guess you could say the puking flu, where he puked and then had that diarrhea where I had to kind of empty out his gut, you know, and that would be normal for human beings in general to have that once in a blue moon over a course of a lifetime. And that's the bacteria that came into the house with the kids, because like Tisha's kids, right, because they picked it up in a different environment. All right. So it said chicken feet. This doctor said chicken feet produces a very nutritional, high concentration of collagen that no other bone broth can produce in comparison to what chicken feet can do, as well as fish skin. And I'm like, fish skin? Where do you get fish skin from? Right? All right. So anyway, I did find chicken feet. They call them here. They're not the whole foot. It's just the claws, I guess. But that's good enough for me. It's 2.5 pounds, right? For $12.48. So I'm just, and it's $4.99 a pound. So I'm just going to try that one bag first to see how much I get in terms of, you know, how full the pot will become with those claws, right? And then to compensate for you know, because I'm trying to make it really, 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 really rich, because I like using my home can little jars that I made for Amari when I'm making his meals. If I'm not using a frozen turkey leg or something like that, or a fresh piece of meat, I find, you know, just opening up a home can jar of ground turkey, you know, and popping it into that 10-inch skillet works really well. So this is kind of the same idea, right? You just incorporate it into his meals as you go. So in other words, you know, now if I do the chicken claws, make that collagen broth, I figured I'm going to get some chicken thighs, 3 pounds. I don't know how many thighs I'm going to get for 3 pounds, but it's $14.97 anyway for 3 pounds at $4.99 a pound. I'm debating whether I should cook the chicken claws in a separate pot and stew them for, you know, for a whole night, right? Or combine the chicken thighs in with the chicken claws. Okay, now, I've looked online. I'm going to put it on me for a minute because my arms are tired. Like, since when do my arms get overworked and feel tired? Okay, so I have 2 choices. Well, I got more than 2 choices. And this is what this video is going to be about, because, you know, like, I'm shaking because, you know, I know what I need to do. I know what I've been doing. And, like, I don't know what these people are up to. I really don't. You know. But besides that point, let's get back on with the chicken. So I'm thinking like this. This is what I'm thinking. Now, you can do chicken feet different kinds of ways in terms of processing them to get that high rich collagen stock, right? Only certain parts of an animal will create a high concentration of collagen. That's why I like pig's feet, because pig's feet will do that as well. But I make that fresh for Amari, so I don't need to can that. Okay, that's simple enough to make. And then I make a little, you know, those little trays, right? Those ones that I bought, and it's good for a few days for him. And I'll eat a piece here and a piece there, but mostly it's for Amari. I make it for Amari because of the collagen, right? All right. So you can blanch your chicken feet after you rinse them off and whatever in boiling water for 30 to 60 seconds. And then you can pull off the skin, pull off the nails, or clip them or whatever, and then you can either freeze them after they're pat dry, and you can throw them into your pot as you're making soups with other chicken, I'm just saying. Or you can do all that and then throw them into a pot, stew them all up at one time, make your broth, your collagen broth, and you'd have to can it because you'd have so much, right? Which is 75 minutes in a pint-sized jar. And even if I used the 250 ml jar, I'd still do it for 75 minutes. Okay, so either or, I'm looking at 75-minute canning session with the chicken, whether I use 250 size ml jars or whether I use pint-sized jars. Okay. Or you can take those chicken legs and you can put them in the oven, start baking them after you clean them a little bit, right? You know, whatever. And then you can bake them at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for like 20 to 25 minutes. And then you would pour in some water with a couple of cloves, a couple of peppercorns, maybe a bay leaf or something like that. Right? A little bit of salt. And you'd bake it for, I don't know, like you turn down the heat and you would slow cook it. Very, 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 so like almost like rendering lard. So 250, maybe at 250 or something like that, right? Because that's enough to yeah. So you want to kind of render it, right? So you're rendering everything out of it, right? And you do that for about 4 hours or whatever, and then you strain it, and because you did it that way, the broth itself comes out a little darker, but it's pretty good from what I read. Right? And then you discard everything else. Okay, there's that method. Or, so it's peel off all the skin after blanching, cut the toes, and just do what's on the inside under the skin, to which you're losing some nutrients from the skin. All right. Or you can put it in the oven, yada, right? And being that you do it that way, and you don't take off the skin, nothing, you'd still have to put it in the fridge, honestly, and then let it solidify. Yeah, you would have to. And then take off that surface fat, because there's different types of fat in animals. Some liquefy, some don't, right? So you'd still have to skim it if you were going to can it. And I'm going to can it because the purpose of this is to have it on hand when I'm doing things and I just want to open up a jar and put it in there for those extra nutrients or whatever. In this case, it would be collagen, right? And all you'd have to do is open up the jar. And honestly, you could put it into a little cast iron pot with a nice tight lid, or just any kind of pot with a nice tight lid, bring it to a boil, turn it down, cook it for that 10 minutes, and then you're good to go, right? So whether you drink it straight up after it's been, cooked, because you have to reheat it and bring it to that boil and kind of keep it like that. So you keep the lid on it, right? And you turn it down so it doesn't all boil away, right, with the lid. And then because it's so hot in there, if there's any botulism from the home canning process, you've dealt with that problem. That's just a safety measure. A lot of people don't do that stuff. I do. Okay, so even if you did it in an oven, you would still have to degrease that surface fat after you put your product into your broth, your stock, into the fridge and let it gelatize with the fat on top, right? And then your sediments, anything that went through the strainer, would gather on the bottom, but the sediments are fine, right? And then, or you can wash your chicken feet, throw it into a big pot. I'm assuming put some salt in there. If you wanted to, you could put a bay leaf and, a little couple of peppercorns or whatever. It's not necessary, right? Especially if you're going to add in meat like I'm thinking, because the chicken itself will produce their own flavors, right? You know what I'm saying? So and then you just stew it for like 24 hours like you would normal anytime you're doing a bone broth. And then by that time, when you go to strain it, everything's going to be falling apart, and anything that's on the inside of the skin, under the skin, it's all going to leach out eventually, right? It's just because that's what happens when you slow cook something for over 24 hours, right? when you were looking for bone broth. Only in this situation, we're going more, not so much for the bone broth as we are for the collagen broth, okay? So I'm assuming you would use less water, because the more water, the less apt is going to gelatize, right? Okay. And if you wanted to, and then of course you strain it, and then you strain it, put it in the fridge, let it get cold, gelatize with the sediments on the bottom if there's any, and then you're going to get a layer of that white, it's lard, really. It's like a lard, right? Chicken lard, right? And you'd skim that off, because that's, when you can, that's the one that can crawl on a jar, right? So the more you can try to avoid that, the better off it is, right? For long-term food storage. Because grease crawls, and then it wants to, get under the lid, and yeah. So the colder you can store your jars in terms of a cool, dark place, the better off it is, the less apt it's going to crawl. But with the temperature changes, sometimes things, whatever. Okay. So, and that's just the straight up collagen broth, as you throw everything else away. So you'd be throwing away the skin that didn't liquefy, because it all won't liquefy, right? Only parts of the skin will liquefy. The meat under the skin, which is like the tendons and, the little bit of flesh that, is connected to the bones or whatever, all that would disappear. I guess the cats can eat it, I suppose, because the bones would be soft by that point. And honestly, I could just take those bones and can them right along with the collagen broth and put cat food on it and add that into cat food. So honestly, I wouldn't even have to throw it out. But I'm thinking, because I've never done this before, so I'm thinking, okay, you do that. And I've done pork feet, and I know how small those bones can get, right? So, there are, when you do pork feet, you can put the bones in the gelatin along with the skin, the little bit of meat pieces that are there, because it's nice to suck on the bones. But of course, I couldn't do that for Amari, right? It would have to be good. Now, I could cut in pieces of skin after the cooking process. I don't know, because I don't know what falls off the bones on chicken feet outside of, I'm sure there's something there that, I could add into that collagen broth after I degrease it, as if I was making pig's feet instead, right? Because it's not just boil up the pig's feet, strain it, throw everything out, and then, put the broth, the gelatin broth, into the fridge, and then after it's cold, scrape off the lard, the pork lard, and then just eat a chunk of gelatin. I mean, if you wanted that, you could. Now, you take the meat, the parts of the skin, anything that's, you can, and then you mix it in with the gelatin pork broth. It's called studnats, pig's feet and jelly, right? And, for adults, it's okay to have bones in them, because we like to suck on them, and chew on them and whatever, right? So when I make Amari's, I put everything in it minus the bones. So when it gets into the blender, he's got pork fat, a little bit of pork meat, and a high concentration of pork gelatin. And that grinds up into his food for whatever the food is in his little grinder cup. Okay. Well, I could do something similar with those chicken feet, assuming there's anything to salvage. I don't know. I've never done this before. I just know that apparently chicken feet and fish skins produce a very nutritional, high concentration of collagen that is better than pig's feet, yada-yada-yada. So, I'm going to attempt to do it. The only thing is I'm battling with myself because, not really shaking in my boots, but I am, because For as much as my kids think I want to fight, they got to, you know, that's just straight up stupidity. As if I fight with them, for crying out loud, as if I want to fight with the government and lose my grandson for, you know, on principle, in terms of, like, I'm at the end of my life here in terms of I'm 63, and it's not like I can go back in time and rebuy this and rebuy that, right? When I need it. I have it now, so if I need it, I know basically where it is. So for somebody to come in and take it away from me just because at the end of the day they're trying to downsize me into a worse situation because they have no solution for a better situation when it comes to living space, you know, right? That it's affordable, then, you know, that's that upside down society that we live in, where good is bad and bad is good. Yeah. With those devil worshippers and their Baphomet situation. But you can't be afraid to stand up to the devil either, right? Okay, so the way I want to do it, based on my experience, even though I've never done chicken feet before, but it would be no different than chicken necks or chicken backs or chicken skin or without skin, chicken, you know, tails, whatever, right? You know, I know enough about food to know that, you know, I can see why there would be a lot of collagen in it because of the bones and just the part of the chicken that, you know, right? Okay. And the tendons and whatever, right? But to enrich it, to enrich it, to make it more flavorful, more nutritional than it already is, right? And to add in a little extra meat in there as well, like I do with the pig's feet, because you're not going to get no meat per se, quote unquote, with the chicken's feet, especially if you stew them for 24 hours. I'd be very surprised to find very much meat. I'd find skin. I'm pretty sure I'd find pieces of skin, because I'm not going to de-skin mine. I don't have time for that. And it's not necessary, right? If I was trying to do some fancy dish or something like that, then maybe, and even then, I don't mind chicken skin. But besides that point, and there is nutrition in chicken skin, I would take... I'm buying the chicken thighs to make a broth with the meat itself, which is going to add not only flavor, but more nutrition to the stock itself. I just don't know if I should cook them separately. But I don't think so. I think I should cook them together because you want to get that collagen, right? If I make chicken feet, you're not going to use a lot of water, I don't think, right? Just to cover them and, you know, keep them covered. You're not looking for a big pot of stock. You're looking for a small pot with just, right? So that all those chicken feet under the water, right, within that little space there, gets really, really infused with all those nutritional aspects around the bones, the skin, the tendons, everything that makes chicken feet collagen superior over other animal products when it comes to beef bones, pork bones, those kind of things, right? Or even chicken as just like a bird, you know, right? There's right? Because the feet, they're made different than the back of the bird. You know, they're made different than the neck, right? Necks you could do as well, because there's a lot of little bones and tendons and stuff like that in necks. So you could, you know, put neck bones in there and keep them going for 24 hours, and they would basically disintegrate and become cat food, because I mean, you might be able to pick off some strands of meat in there and stuff, but after it all gets mixed up, it's, you know, sometimes it's easier just to give it to the animals, right? Well, I don't know what I'm going to get with these chicken feet, but if I put in, you know, so there's 2.5 pounds of chicken feet, and then if I added in 1.5 pounds, at least a half a pack of chicken thighs with a fair amount of the fat cut off, which you can then put in the freezer and fry it up later for something else that you want to eat with it, right? And as a matter of fact, I wouldn't even need the fat, so I could defat the chicken thighs altogether, because that's not what I'm cooking it for. I already got the fat, like the skin, right? I already got the skin on the chicken legs, so I don't need the chicken. I don't need the chicken fat. I'm sorry, the chicken skin from the thighs. I can just take those off, put them in a bag, says chicken skin, and freeze them, because the chicken itself is fresh, right? And I can fry that up later and make, you know, kind of render it. I can render it later, and then take that lard that comes from that chicken fat, and I can fry something with it, which would be very flavorful. And you can consume all of it, right? None of it's going to go to waste, right? It's going to fry whatever you want to fry. And then the leftover that doesn't fry, because there's different layers to the skin when it comes to fat, turns to crackling. You just put a little seasoning salt on that crackling, and you're good to go. So I could honestly, and that's another thing, when you're canning, the more you can fill up your canner, the more stable your canner is. You know, if you only have a few jars, 5 jars or something like that in your canner, I'm not saying you can't pressure can for 75 minutes with 5 jars in your canner, you can, but the temperature tends to fluctuate more, where if you have a fuller canner, right, you know, 1 level, 2 level, the fuller your canner is, the more stable your canner is to hold the temperature. You still have to stand there and, you know, keep an eye on it and adjust it, but it doesn't go up and down as fast, right? So in my mind, I'm trying to fill up the canner, plus I've got the jars, you know, and you know, I'm trying to justify, well, the social workers want me to get rid of stuff. Well, you got all these jars kicking around. You kind of wanted to use them for some fruit to can from downstairs or whatever, but at the end of the day, you know, if something like this came about, you know, I'd jump on. I almost did beef with beef bones and stuff, like not even 2 weeks ago. And I had to refrain from it, right? Just say, like, because the beef was on sale, and I'm like, no, that's okay. That's another day. I'll save my jars. So I've got the jars here. That's not the problem. And if I'm going to do it, you know, I would, canning, that is, I'd do it for this reason, right? For Amari. Because it works when I open up a jar and put it into his food. And, you know, I'm always in my head scrambling around, you know, how to build up his muscles, right? Without relying on calories, because calories don't seem to matter at this point. They just don't, because, you know, he eats good food, and, you know, now with these drinks, he's getting them 4 times a day, and on top of his food, and, you know, he's starting with this again, like, you know, he's not wanting to eat sometimes, right? We have to wait and come back, and because his gut is full, because he's constipated. We've been giving them laxative, that's not moving, so it took less than a month and a half for those drinks to clog him up. So, you know, there you go, right back to where we started from. And he's still not gaining weight, but he's getting longer, he's active, he's not getting sick. So, you know, okay, well, what else can I do, right? Right? So why don't we maybe try and introduce collagen more, right? Okay, so I'm beating my head up against the wall on this, and I've got the jars. All right, so if I do this, which I'm pretty close to doing it, I don't care what these women have to say, because if they're going to come in here and take Amari away because I'm doing this kind of stuff and not doing what they want me to do in a timely manner, well, then that's I don't know what that is, okay? Because, like, this stuff that I do is not easy, but I'm willing to do it. I want to do it. I want to give it a try, right? You know what I'm saying? So, okay. Now, I don't know if I should put the... I probably should cook them together. So we've determined that, okay, so if I get the chicken legs, or chicken thighs, I want the brown meat. I want the brown meat, right? And, you know, there's one bone in it, which is good. I don't like using legs too much because of those long little sliver things, you know, especially if you're going to be stewing it and stuff, right? And for the price, it's almost the same price. So I would prefer a chicken thigh. It's a nice solid piece of meat with one bone and a few knuckles, right? Easy to work with. So, and it will give off a really good, rich chicken flavor as long as if I use enough of it, which honestly, I could use the full 3 pounds. So I could do 3 pounds, and I'm like, do I combine the chicken feet with the thighs and cook them up together? Not for a big stock pot of broth, but for a good, rich, flavorful, nutritional stock that is infused with a lot of collagen. Because meat, if you cook enough of it in a small amount of water, will also create collagen. There's different types of collagen, right? Yeah, I think so. I know there is. Okay. So what? Do I put the... I don't know if I should separate them. I don't know if I should cook the chicken feet separate in its own pot and then cook the chicken thighs in a separate pot, both with just enough water, maybe an inch of water, or just, about an inch of water above whatever's in the pot, so that, right, and just kind of keep it at that level as best as you can, for the most part, without it evaporating it, right? As well as the same thing with the chicken thighs. And then after it's all said and done, right, strain them, take out the chicken thighs, and then just, right, and take out the chicken feet, and then merge the two stocks together, because both of them would be rich with collagen to one degree or another, providing you keep your liquid. You don't want like that, because then you're just going to get chicken stock. Yeah, you'll have collagen in it, but not like if you went to this degree, right? So do I cook them separate and then merge the stocks together? Pick through everything. It will be easy to pick the meat off the chicken, put it in a jar, and I can fill that up with that collagen broth. I'm just saying, take out the bone, right? And right? So I can get a few jars of chicken. That's not going to go to waste, the chicken thighs, right? With collagen broth, which is good. And then anything left over when it comes to collagen broth, put them into pint-sized jars first, I would think. Because you could use one pint-sized jar over a period of 2 or 3 days for his meals. Just, pour it in. If it's in the fridge, it should gel up. Just scoop it out and put it into his food. Where the chicken thighs can be chicken thighs with collagen stock. I'd specifically write it as collagen stock. Not just bone broth, but collagen stock, because here I'm trying to make collagen. Or do I cook them up together? The thighs themselves won't really fall apart. As long as the burner isn't too high and you've got that slow simmer going for that 24-hour period, you're not going to get anything burning on the bottom. And you could gently take a wooden spoon and just move it gently when you check on it, right? Just right. And then when you go to empty everything out, you can take a spoon or prongs and you can pull out the legs, and they'll still be pretty much in their shape, right? Where the chicken feet, I don't know what's going to happen with that. I would think they would fall apart and it would be one big Mod Podge of something. And then that's where I'd pick through it and decide what I want to put into the jar after the fact. Right? Because I don't know what to expect because I've never done it before. Right? And then, you know, that's where I'd take pieces of skin that didn't render into lard. Yeah. And I'd see what was attached to the bones, and if it looks like I can salvage some of it because it's coming off in little pieces of meat or whatever, then I'd put that in the jar with the collagen broth. And that's what I'd use for Amari. Yeah, with his meals. As well as I've got the chicken thighs also with the broth. And if for some reason I don't have enough collagen broth after I do the first batch of whatever I'm doing, I could always use water, boiling water, with a seasoning, chicken stock powder, right? And put your cooked chicken, you could put your cooked chicken thigh into the jar and make yourself just some vegetable stock, chicken stock, whatever, with the powder, and top your jar off with that. And then this way, I have, because I want access. What I want, I don't want to lose what I make if I do 250 size milled jars and I'm catting that for 75 minutes, which is a long time for a 250 size milled jar, with a bunch of liquid in it and just a few pieces of skin and a few pieces of meat, not very much. It's more liquid than anything else, because that's what we're trying to do here. I mean, I could strain it. I could strain it completely and then just can it like a stock. And in that situation, it would be no more than 20 minutes in a pressure canner. As long as there's no meat pieces and stuff in it, because when you do stock, you can do like a quart size, I think a quart size jar of beef stock, chicken stock, pork stock, whatever stock is like 30 minutes, and I think a pint size is 20 minutes. So if I'm doing a 250 mils jar, I'd do it for 15 or 20 minutes, probably 20 minutes just on the safe side, because it's stock and it's nothing but stock. Whether it's got collagen or not, I don't think it would make much of a difference. But I kind of want to have little bits and pieces of meat or skin or tendons or whatever in there, because, I can't justify just giving it to the cats at this point. And, as much as I think about making cat food, the more I can give to us in terms of human food, and the cats can have the leftovers, then fine. But to take all those chicken feet and just stuff them into jars for cats like that. So I'm going to be picking. I'll probably do a video on it when I should be working. You see, that's the thing. Whether outside, downstairs, in the house. But this is where I'm putting Amari first, because, I have to work anyway, and I only have so much time to do things. And if I wait to get part of the yard done, or part of the basement done, or whatever it is that these women want me to do up here, which is impractical in a lot of instances, and whatever else they wanted me to do, I've been working on it. But at the same time, I've got limited space, and I've been displaced for several years, and they need to acknowledge that. And I am working on finding a way to move out. Right? Yeah, I am. And it's still up for debate as to what I'm taking with me and who I'm living with. right? So in the meantime, the priority is working on Amari's meal plan, right? And I think this is worth a shot. I do. So before I get too deep into the yard, working on the porch, wait till you see the porch. That's going to take a week, if not longer. Oh yeah. The yard is going to take a couple weeks, if not longer. The basement is going to take a couple weeks, if not longer. And that's not including the laundry that I do, and the cooking, and the cleaning, and this and that, and da da da, right? You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I sleep to work. Okay? I don't necessarily consider this, what I'm talking about, to be work. I don't. It is work. But I don't see it like it's work. Hold on a minute. Okay, so the whole point of this exercise is to create a product that is highly nutritional and very dense in collagen. Whether it has little bits of this in terms of meat, tendons, and skin, or whether it's just straight up liquid collagen, okay? That is the purpose of this exercise, which is completely different from anything that I've ever done. And the only reason I would be doing it would be for Amari, to give him his body, to give his body a fighting chance to combat whatever the hell is going on with him when it comes to not with, retaining muscle mass. Okay? So I only have a small window of opportunity to do this. In other words, I have to ignore everything else around me outside of the daily grind, the dishes, the laundry, a pittering of this, a pittering of that, take out the garbage and the recycle and changing and feeding, whatever, just, because it's okay, right? You know what I'm saying? I'm supposed to be making a doctor's appointment with my family doctor to deal with my disability forms, and I'm not even doing that right now because of the stress that these social workers are putting me under, right? They called me, as a matter of fact, when these social workers were here, and I said, I'll call you back, and I'm not even going to book an appointment. Just like when in the old days when I was working in the yard, I needed to get to the doctor to get eye specialist, drops or whatever, and there was a whip on my back, and I had to work. Well, it's kind of the same situation right now, but besides that point, right, the reason I'm doing this is to introduce a different type of food group that might be better for Amari long term, right? You'd have to give it to him on a regular basis, and it'd just be easier if I had it pre-canned. I'd be more apt to be able to give it to him more regularly and incorporate it into his foods. I could do straight up collagen with amaranth, for crying out loud, and sweet potato mixed together. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that would be easy to do if all I had to do was open up a jar. Yeah, a pint-sized jar, cook up a sweet potato, throw in some amaranth or quinoa. Quinoa, I got to get into the quinoas. I got to dig out a jar of quinoa and start using the quinoa. Quinoa is I don't know, quinoa just keeps coming up, right? So, you open up a jar of the collagen broth with a sweet potato, right? And in other words, what I'd do is I'd cook up the sweet potato with water, maybe some butter, a little bit of salt, right? Throw in the quinoa, and then throw in the broth so that the quinoa sucks up the broth. Yeah. The collagen broth. Okay. So I'm thinking to combine chicken thighs with no skin on with the chicken feet. Give it a good stew for at least a day, 24 hours. And then debone. Decide how I'm going to can whatever's salvageable. Obviously, the chicken thighs I can no problem, either or, with or without collagen, that's not an issue. And then see what comes off of these chicken feet, and if I can add in little pieces of that, because I'm doing 75 minutes anyway, that's even more nutrition for Amari, right? That will take a couple of days, because first you have to cook it, then you cool it, then you divvy it up, right? Then you take that stock, basically, you put it in the fridge, so that lard, it's like a lard, right? The greasy lard, you know, the one that you can spread around. You skim that off, and there you go. You got a big pot of gelatin. That's what should happen from this. And then you combine however you want with your little bits and pieces of meat, regardless of what that meat product is when it comes to chicken parts, right? And you can it. So that will take about 2 or 3 days, because it takes at least a day for it to sit at like 20. Better to sit for 24 hours in a fridge, at least, right? And plus my energy level. You know, I'm doing dishes and laundry and maybe I want to sleep for a while, right? Because the hours get long and hard and grueling, right? And then I'll sleep before I can, so I can have the stamina to stand there for 75 minutes and just do the rigmarole around the canning process. But once it's canned, I can write collagen on each and every jar, with or without chicken products in it, which is good. So I'm excited for that for Amari, because I want to give it a fair shot. And then the other collagen that you want for muscle mass, there's a name for it, I wrote it down. I don't know where it is. Anyway, it's where you lose muscle mass. Some people just get the disease, where oftentimes it just happens to elderly people. It's kind of starting to happen to me, because I'm not using my muscles like I used to, especially when it came to yard work. But I'm still pretty strong yet. But I'm noticing, you know, I'm noticing a little something, right? You know, in here, you can, right? It's like, right, that, right? Because I've lost my muscles. I still have a bit, and it's still there, right? But not as big as they used to be. All right, besides that point. Okay, so the next one you want is fish skin. Make fish skin collagen stock. That's really, really good for this disease, age-related disease, whatever it is, It's better than bone broth. It's beef bone broth. It's better than chicken bone broth. Yada yada. This is, you know, there's only those two: chicken feet and fish skin. And I'm like, okay, so where am I going to get fish skin from? So for the last 2 days, I got up this morning, and I already had, and I did a little more reading, and this is what I brought it down to. Assuming that this place has these products, the first thing I would start with would be halibut bones. Oh, and they're so good too. Oh, they're delicious. Yeah. $2.99 a pound. Wow, that's great. Currently, I've got 4 pounds. I'm thinking to add 1 more pound in there. Yeah, I probably should. So I'm going to start with the 5 pounds of halibut bones, and you're going to get a lot of collagen coming in from them, because that's a fish bone that I'm familiar with, and they come in quite large, right? And if you cook them up like in a frying pan and stuff, and you suck on them, oh, they're so good. They're so good. So we're going to start with that, and then frozen wild red snapper, because you can't. Because now I'm looking. You can't. you can't buy fish skin. You have to buy the whole fish. So, and if you're going to make fish stock, right, for the most part, you want a white fish. Okay, so I've decided to, and you know, you have to be able to find the fish. So they have red snapper, frozen wild red snapper, 1.5 pounds. Okay, I don't know how big that is. blah, 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 blah. Anyway, it's 20 bucks. Oh, $21. It's $21 for a red snapper. So all I want from that, really, all I want is the skin, really. You can do the fins. That's okay. Avoid if this has gills on them, apparently when you're making fish stock, don't use the gills, because gills can make the stock itself bitter. That's what I've read, right? More than one article. So I'm not gonna, no gills, but you can do the fins. Now, I don't want to cook up the whole fish per se in water with halibut bones, because all I really want is the skin. That's it. And maybe the head, if it has a head. Right? You can pop that in there as well, right? So I'm like, okay, well, it's frozen. Unthaw it. And of course you want the bones. I don't know how to fillet a fish. I can attempt to. I can attempt to take off the skin. Right? I can attempt to take off the skin. I can attempt to take off the bones somehow, some way, even if I have to scrape it. Even if I have to scrape the flesh off the bones, I'd go as far as to try to do that, so that I can put the bones and the skin in with the halibut bones, right? Because I'm looking to make collagen stock, right? And then the flesh, well, I'd have to cook it up because it's been unthawed, right? I would have to cook it up. And I don't think it would be a lot of meat anyway after the fact, to which after it's cooked up, you know, I could just make it with, you know, I could use that for Amari's meal, or maybe make a red snapper sandwich with mayonnaise or something, or, you know, and if not, I can put it in with potatoes and make potato burgers for everybody, or, you know, I could use it for Amari's meal versus giving him sardines or giving him salmon. You know, I could give him that. What I'm trying to do is make that collagen broth with fish. Yeah. So I'm thinking to buy that. So that's 20 bucks. So the halibut bones with 5 pounds is $15. Okay? And then the snapper at 1.5 pounds is $21. So that is $36 so far. And then fresh ling cod steak, 2 pounds, for another $16. So $31. So now we're at $47. And what I do with that, I cut off the skin, literally, and I'd throw that into the pot with the snapper bits and pieces, with the halibut bones, right? And then because it's fresh, I could just freeze the fish itself. And I can even cut out the bones and everything, because it's, you know, comes in already pre-cut, and it'd probably be about 1 inch thick. And that's 1 pound of fish, 2 pounds of fish. So I could probably freeze that fish after I take out the bones, however I do it, and take off the skin, to put into the pot with the halibut bones, the red snapper bones, and the red snapper skin. And just because I'm working with fish, so that's basically what I would just use. And then when you put that all into a pot to make your collagen broth, right? So I'm looking at almost 50 bucks to try and get this fish collagen. You put that all into a pot, and then, you know, again, you don't want a whole bunch of water unless, of course, you're just looking for fish stock. No, I want collagen. So you just kind of, again, you know, just bring it up about 1 inch or so, I would think, anyway, over whatever's in the pot. So if you're, if your product with the bones, like the halibut bones will, you know, depending on the size of the pot, right? You know, you just go above 1 inch, right? And then and for that, though, you'd only have to do it, they say, for about 45 minutes or something. And you bring it almost to a boil, but not quite. Just when it's just ready to start boiling, right? And then you turn it down and you cook it for 45 minutes. Apparently it doesn't require a lot of cooking, but I don't know, I might cook it longer than 45 minutes, because the longer you cook it, the more it seeps out from the bones themselves. And right, the problem with fish though, if you cook too long, the calcium in the fish, I don't know, starts to deteriorate, and it changes the color of the stock, where it's not clear. It starts to become cloudy, to which at this point I wouldn't really care, right? So, but from what I read, it's only about a 45-minute simmer after you bring it almost to a boil. So, you know, I might do it for a couple of hours on a low simmer. Now, that's not going to get me a lot of collagen fish stock, I don't think. I don't think so. But I won't know until I try it. You see, that's the thing. Right? And because Amari will eat fish, sardines, salmon, whatever, I'm taking a gamble on this one in terms of, well, how would I merge fish stock into his food for that collagen aspect around it? Because you want two different types of collagen for the body to be able to regenerate itself, right? That's what that doctor said. Try not to rely on one. Try and introduce both into your diet, because each one provides different nutrients. Yeah. And then I'm just going to add in a little bag of frozen gutted tilapia, 2 pounds for $6, but I don't know if I'm going to cook with it. I just want to see what it looks like first, frozen, for $6, and see where it comes in from. Because if it's coming in from China, that could be possibly a problem, because they mass produce these things in fish farms, which, you know, rumorville is, they're not necessarily as, I don't want to say hygienic, but, you know, they're fed a lot of antibiotics, these fish, and, you know, they're in confined spaces, and, you know, so I have to look at the packaging first to see where the product comes from, if it's farmed fish, because if it's farmed fish, I'd probably never buy it again, right? You know, and I thought for $6, it's worth looking to see, first of all, because I don't cook with tilapia, you know, I don't cook with it, so I just want to see how much skin it has on it. It looks like it's got skin. So, you know, whether I use it or not remains to be seen yet. You know, I mean, obviously it's edible. People buy it all the time. They're always using it. So with just that, the bill itself is $85.21. And I'd like to do it now while it's on my mind. Get it over with within the next 4 or 5 days before I hunker down with yard work, still doing what I'm doing up here as I do, and basement, and anything else I have to do. Because once I get distracted, and I've got people beating me up for doing things that I think are important to do, and not what they want me to do. Do you honestly think I'm going to find time to do this? Never mind with love in my heart. In terms of, you know, just because it's work, right? But the end product is worth it. And I think this would be worth a shot for Amari. Even if I used a jar once a week, I won't know how much I get until I do it. Right? The doctor said every day. Drink it every day. This stuff. I don't know if I could afford that. Never mind make it every... I couldn't make it every day as an individual pot. It wouldn't work, right? I have to do it in bulk and can it. With the fish, with or without pieces of fish in it, right? You know, okay? So let me put it to you this way. I could do this. Just like I'm thinking to put little bits of pieces of chicken or whatever the chicken is into the collagen broth after it's made. I could do the same thing with the fish. In terms of the frozen wild red snapper, I could debone it, deskin it, make the collagen broth. After the collagen broth is done, I could take that now unthawed red snapper, give it a quick little stir fry, right? Quickly, you know what I'm saying? And then add it into the jar. And then fill it up with that collagen broth. Okay? But I'd have to can that 250 ml jar for 100 minutes. Or 110. And once I'm at 100 minutes, I tend to make myself stand there for the extra 10 minutes. And that's like you stand in front of a canner for what, an hour and a half or something like that. You know what I'm saying? Maybe even longer than that. I don't remember. I just know that it's a long time. Right? So I normally do 110 minutes. 60 minutes, 40 minutes. So that's 1 hour and 40 minutes, 1 hour and 50 minutes. Yeah, 1 hour and 50 minutes. So you're almost there for 2 hours canning a 250 ml jar. But it's worth it, right, in terms of fish, right? And that's doing it safely, right? That's between 100 and 110. I would do it for 100, 110. And I could take that wild red snapper and being that you don't really stew the bones very long, I'm going to double check on that one. I don't care about the color as I care about the collagen, right? You know, but I guess if you cook fish too long, stewing on a low heat for too long, the calcium, something, I don't know. Okay, so that's what I'm thinking. So when these social workers come tomorrow, because they're coming tomorrow, right? I mean, first they're going to ask me what I did. I'm going to tell them, well, I've been washing the floor, you know, de-spidering things, going through buckets, sorting out crap, right? Reorganizing, right? Blah. But it doesn't look like you did very much. Well, no, actually I did a fair amount because, you know, I've been doing laundry, I've been cooking, I've been cleaning, you know, and if you want me to start this, I'm not just going to move things around and you know, I'm going to get in there and wash the floor and wipe things down and, you know, and just whatever. And I'm going to make sure the buckets are, like, you know, what's in the bucket is packaged correctly and, you know, it's labeled and, you know, right? That kind of stuff. But I'm going to let them know I have to get outside. So I'm going to take them outside. I'm going to walk them around. We're going to talk about the windows and the safety around the windows, and how this one here in the living room is the safest of all safest when it comes to, you know, fire exit, compared to that one, and that one. Forget about this one. And being that they're using that against me, right? And, you know, I have a right to keep my VCRs because I do plan on using them, especially for Amari with all the children's one, right? You know, you can't ask me to get rid of them because my son keeps throwing them out of the basement. I can't leave them in the shed because they start to mildew, and once the mildew kicks in, it will just go moldy. So they have to be where they are right now. I've asked my son to put them up in the attic, but he refuses to do that for me. So, you know, I settle for what it's worth because they're not in our way, you know, and I'm not worried about them at this point. What I'm worried about is later on in life, maybe when, and look at it from this point of view, you know, right now I've got Alea May and Kyrie coming over, and they have children's voices, right? Because Amari, if you listen when my grandkids are here, and he gets all geeked up and whatever, he loves it, right? But once they grow up and they're not children anymore, you know, he's always going to be somewhat in a child state with his mind, you know. I'm not saying he can't think because he does. I'm not saying he can't calculate because he does. I'm not saying he doesn't understand because he does. But, you know, at the same time, you know, I could see Amari laying on a king-size mattress with a bunch of bean bags with his little toys, right? You know what I'm saying? And with the TV in the background, playing Land Before Time after Land Before Time. You could do 5 videos, 4 videos, 3 videos in a row, and it wouldn't cost me not 1 red cent, and Amari would probably be extremely happy because of the tones of the voices of the characters within those types of videos. Yeah. They're not thinking about that kind of stuff. So it would be cruel to take those videos away, especially if they're going to be used for that purpose. Not only for entertainment, but also as maybe companionship. Because when the cousins come by, they're going to be big, and they're not going to be like it was when they were little. And Amari will get lonely, and he'll miss that. Where if the video is playing in the background, he might not necessarily see the kids, but it will soothe him because he'll hear the child voices, and he'd probably sing and, you know, what Amari does, right? Right? Those videos sat downstairs on a shelf in the living room right up until Marina moved in. As soon as she moved in and they started gutting the basement, they ended up in the garage. Then I brought them back in, and then they ended up in the garage again. And then I brought them back in, and then they ended up almost in the bin outside because he put them in the shed. And then he emptied out the shed and was throwing everything out in the bin. And I rescued them. And by the time I got to them, they were already starting to mildew because of the paper. A lot of them had paper, or just the moisture within the air permeating the cases. So I had to wipe everything down, open them up, air it, dry it, whatever, and then repack. And they're just sitting in my hall. And we're not even using that bedroom right now because the bedroom that they're in front of, I'm going to turn that into a boutique where I can have women come by on appointment, go through things on a rack. There will be 2 racks in there, right? I'm just saying, as well as choice of fabrics, whatever, once we get it organized. They can't, I'm not running the streets. I'm not doing, hold on a minute. Okay, so I'm not running the streets. I'm not doing drugs. I'm not drinking. I'm not sleeping with men from bus to bus to bus. Right? I sleep to work. Right? I play catch up constantly because of other people's bad behavior, as I'm expected to pay for things that I shouldn't have to, but I do anyway just because. Right? In terms of, you know, if I don't, then I get even more flack and threats. I'm just saying. Threats, people. And You know, I pay the bills. My hydro this month was $393, which is almost $100 more than when summer first started. And that's because Marina's not working, basically, and she's downstairs setting up her little business with her sewing. I can tell that's what's going on there, right? Washing the fabric that she buys or wherever she gets it from, running lights all day long because she's down there 24/7 basically. In addition to, they run a air conditioner down there. Plus they have 2 computers, yada. So, yeah, so, you know, my hydro went up by $100 because of that. And this is summertime. It should be under $300, and it's not. Last month it was $334. So that's them using up the hydro, and I pay the hydro. Okay. So, you know, I covered the cost of stuff like that. I'm going to ask my son to top it off this month because that's just ridiculous. And he'll probably just... What? He'll probably just give me an extra $50 when in fact he should give me $100. And then he's going to ask me for $160 for, you know, with this mouse man plugging up the house to prevent mice from getting in. Even though I never had a mouse problem, per se. And whatever mouse problem was downstairs, I don't know. Like, there isn't a lot of, I don't know. Maybe they were underneath the steps, but they're not up here in this pantry, that's for sure. So they were basically isolated to one spot because of the outside. They got in from outside, which I'm paying for to plug up. So I do shit like that, you know. I paid $180 for a whole brand new hose and a sprayer that I can't use because now I'm doing other things in terms of, you know, get rid of this and get rid of that when I haven't done anything wrong. And I'm thinking about the future. You know, I am thinking about trying to move at some point in the future, right? You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I am narrowing it down to what I want to keep and where I'm going to put it when we start fresh in terms of Andre, right? It's just I don't have a lot of I don't have the privilege to set up my little sewing fabric store yet because nobody wants to help me, right? And they don't care how busy I am with the daily grind and the rigmarole of the laundry and, you know, and just whatever I do in a day. And they sure in the hell don't care about stuff like what I'm just talking about in this video when it comes to making rich collagen stock or broth or whatever you want to call it, because they don't deal with a special needs child. So, you know, if anything, I'd probably get criticized for it because I'm, you know, wasting time when I should be doing something else. And I don't see it like that. I see it like, well, if I order this, which I really want to, then I can just focus on it for the week. Social workers will come and they're going to say, well, what are you going to do this week? And I'm going to tell them I'm making deep collagen broth for Amari. Deep, rich collagen broth for Amari with chicken legs and thighs and a whole bunch of fish and their skins, fish bones and their skins. Well, that's not what we told you to do. Yes, I understand that. But, you know, I'm battling something here that I don't quite understand what I'm battling. All I know is I'm kind of, you know, being scrutinized for it as if I'm doing something wrong when in fact I'm not. And, you know, I try this and I try that, and this is just one more means to try something that might make a difference for him. And if it makes a difference for him, assuming that I can build this type of schedule into his meal program, because I won't know how many jars I get until I do it. And then, of course, you have to use the jars, right, over a period of time. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, right? No. And then they'll say, okay, well, next week you'll start. I'll be like, no, I'm going to be in the yard. Well, no, that's not what we told you to do. I'll be, yeah, but you don't understand. If I don't get out in the yard and do what I think needs to be done, that yard will just be used against me in the middle of winter or the early part of spring, because there's a plan to have my family evicted, because the people that are participating in that activity want either the kickbacks from that eviction in terms of moving in an immigrant this and an immigrant that, and then they, you know, get their little kickbacks on that, you know, in terms of like city workers and stuff, right? Get rid of everything. Yeah, okay. And the landlord just gets more money. That's it. Well, you guys take Amari away from me because now I'm at a homeless shelter. Or maybe I'll manage to get us into a small 2-bedroom mouse-infested basement suite, but you won't be happy with that. You won't be happy with that. You'll say that's not good for Amari. Yeah, okay. So I have to work in the yard because I have to bring down bills so that I can pay who knows what for a dump with a whole bunch of problems in it because the house is going to be torn down. Yeah. Because that's the cycle that we're on in terms of what's going on in this province. The chances of me moving into a place where there's going to be any form of security when it comes to housing security are almost nil to none. Unless, of course, I can pay $5,000 a month, to which I couldn't. So I don't know. Right now I'm just trying to keep what I have and maximize on what I have when it comes to when I finally get a chance to start selling things. I figured winter time, that's when we'd have time to really start figuring it out. And plus I've already talked to a woman to come and help me sort it out, to organize it. And she said she would, whether I pay her or whether I give her clothes or whatever, or whether I do both, it remains to be seen. But that can't happen until I work in the yard, work in the basement, and do little things like I'm doing right now. So I figure if I do this first, it'll take me about a week. But then that gives me another week just to kind of continue working up here a bit more. I don't know how much I'll be able to accomplish, honestly, because I don't have a lot of space. I don't have a functioning porch. You know, if I get out on the porch, try and leak-proof it a bit, I might be able to put a few things out there after I throw out a whole bunch of shit that's gotten ruined. You wait and see. I don't know. I suspect it's gotten ruined. I won't know until I actually get out there and start doing something. And try and leak-proof it a bit. And then maybe I could put a few things out there temporarily for the winter. I don't know. Do you see go to pay? Or how can I pay on delivery? Maybe you have to. Well, I'm thinking to do this with the chicken feet and everything, because once we start with the yard and the basement and everything else, I'm not going to have time to do this. Here we go. I'm not. So I kind of want to do it now and be done with it to give it a fair shot to see if it will help. That's all I'm trying to do here. I'm just wanting to see if it helps. You know, like I said, at this point, he stays healthy, but, you know, just with the lack of muscles and stuff, that's problematic. So, it's just another attempt to do something here. So yeah, I do this for a week, because between the two of them, right, because that's what that doctor said. The fish skin is the best, and chicken feet. Ideally, you want it in your diet every day. I don't know if I could do that every day. Because, you know, there's only so much time in a day. But it's just a supplement to the things that I already have. Right? It helps with that building of texture of his food, yada yada yada. Okay, so so I'm logged in. All right. Oh. They got messages here, notification. Oh, I don't care about that. So go to cart. I'm just trying to see what's hooked up here in terms of paying. It's $85.21. Proceed to cart. Please select a delivery address. How do I do that? I see no place here for that. I don't know how to do that. Checkout. My cart. Delivery. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Next. Okay, so when can I get it delivered? Express delivery. All categories deliverable. Okay. Next. Okay. I can get it today. Oh no. Friday. Available time. Slot. What's tomorrow? Nothing for Thursday. So it would have to be Friday. Okay. And they do it in military time. Between 12 and 1500 hours. So what is that, 3 o'clock? Between 12 and 3 o'clock? Because they're not coming at 3 in the morning, that's for sure. And I think 12 is high noon. Right? Confirm. So do I do this or not, people? Let's see what is registered, what card. If I don't have to register and muck around with that, then proceed to checkout. Okay. Subtotal $85.21. So if I get it on Friday, one, two, three, 4, 5, 6. If I get it on Friday, I could start the chicken by Friday afternoon, like in the evening. Let it cook all night, like, you know. I have to think about it. Hold on. Okay, so I did it. Right? I'm feeling really bad about it. And I shouldn't be. And I had to pay almost $10 for delivery. And I don't get it till Friday. But that's okay. That gives me the weekend. I give myself 5 days to do it all really in a nice kind of way. I'm an experienced canner. So I think I can do a good job with this. Thank you. I think I can do a good job with this. Okay. I think I can. I'm going to start with the chicken legs first. I'm going to prep the fish. Some of them are frozen, so I'm just going to keep them frozen. I'm going to, yeah. I'm going to do the chicken first, or maybe I'll even do the fish first. I don't know. Chicken, you know, can only be in the fridge for a couple of days raw, eh? So I should start cooking the chicken pretty much as soon as I get it by that evening. I have to wash them and whatever, right? So, yeah. Okay. So, I feel like crying, though. Because I'm doing this under pressure. And then after this is done, I was going to tell these women, what are you going to be doing? I'm going to, you know, you didn't do enough or whatever. And I'll be like, no, I'm canning collagen broths for my grandson with chicken feet and fish skins and bones. I'm trying something different to supplement his diet. I'm working on that as I continue just picking away a little bit up here, do laundry, dishes, whatever I do. And then next week, after I'm done the canning, you know, like, because, you know, I mean, like, the chicken can sit in a pot for 12 hours, right? Not 12 hours. That stuff can sit in a pot for at least a day, 24 hours, right? And then if you're canning just broth, right, it's only like in a pint-sized jar. It's only a 20-minute can. And I've got the jars, so, you know, I need to use them up. Where I'm going to put them after the fact, I don't know. I haven't quite figured that one out yet, you know. But I can just tuck them off to the side temporarily until I figure out whatever's going on downstairs. And because there's some things in my room that I want to take downstairs, but I can't do that until I organize down there. And even then, who knows, right? But this is different. This is a different food group. And that's why I didn't want to spend $100 on what I bought, but I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to give it my best shot. And I'm going to see how much of this stuff that I'm shooting for I get in terms of the number of jars and how many meals. And then I'm going to divide it by that $100, right? You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and that's for everything. That's for the fish and the chicken and chicken thighs and, right, you know, I probably should get a fair amount. And I've got the salmon jars, so I'm good, right? I got 2 cases of the salmon jars. So that fish I can after the fact. I'll probably just, I don't know. Well, I think fish stock, I don't know what the time is on fish. I know that beef and pork and chicken, if you just do stock, the time on it is, like I said, 30 minutes maybe for a quart, and maybe 20 minutes or 25 minutes for a pint, compared to 75 minutes for a pint and 90 minutes for a quart, right? As long as there's no meat in there. But I plan on canning up a little bit of that turkey thigh So I'm looking at 75 minutes anyway, so it wouldn't matter. You can put your stock in at 75 minutes with your chicken, and it would still be fine. The point is I'm shooting for that canning fish stock. Yeah, and then after that, then I'll do the fish and I'll try it. If I find I don't like it, it wasn't worth it, then I'll never do it again. But if I'm happy with the results, pressure canning fish stock. What's the time on it? Let's see. So hard to see these days. I don't. Of course, they don't have anything written here. Nice, just easy to read. 35 minutes. For quarts, you may need to make adjustments for okay, so for a quart you're looking at 35 minutes. Okay, so jars at 10 pounds pressure for 30 minutes, pints. So for fish it's just a little longer, right? An extra 10. So for chicken, pork, and beef, if you're just doing nothing but broth inside the jar, is 20 minutes, I'm pretty sure, or 25 minutes if you want to just do that extra 5 minutes. And if you're doing a quart, it's 30 minutes. Where with the fish, they got it at 35 minutes. Yeah. So in a situation like that, honestly, you kind of want to have your stocks ready at the same time, and you can basically put them in the pressure canner at the same time. Because even if you did a pint size jar for 30 minutes in a pressure canner versus 20 minutes, honestly, that extra 10 minutes to compensate for the fish stock isn't going to make much of a difference. So technically I should have both stocks ready at the same time before I pressure can. Where the difference is going to be is if I can quote unquote fish with either water or some kind of leftover stock or something, you know, right? Just because then you're looking at 110 minutes. And for the amount of fish that I bought, honestly, for what it's worth, I don't, you know, I work with salmons that are like long, you know, and I've got like 4 or 5 or 6 of them. So, you know, that's how you get 24 jars at one time full of salmon or whatever, right? So, you know, for the amount of fish that I bought, for the amount of price that I paid, whatever I cook up, it wouldn't be that hard for me to put it in the freezer in a little baggie with, say, fish on it, and then add it into Amari's food as I go, because that's not the mission here. It's not the fish that I want per se, as it is the bones and the skin. Who does that?
Does what?
Make fish collagen for Amari.
I don't know.
And chicken feet collagen for Amari. Wait till I start cooking up chicken feet. Andre will be, chicken feet? It's like that chicken head. When I bought that chicken from T&T, and I was cleaning it at the sink, remember that video? And I grabbed the neck, and because I don't see that well, I didn't realize the thing had a head on it until I looked it in the eye, and I'm like, oh, right? I did can it with whatever chicken I was canning that day, put cat food on the jar. So, but in that situation, they would use it for soup. So, you know, Chinese people and Asian people, you know, they cook that stuff up with their soups, right? Okay, so I'm gonna have to do my broth, I think, at the same time if there's nothing inside, and that's what I'm shooting for. So stay focused. Try and make as much collagen broth as you can. It would be really nice if I could get him to drink it, but he won't. The only thing I can do is incorporate it into his food. And then because the chicken itself, well, no, that would have to be a different canner. I could do 75 minutes for chicken add in that little extra fish if I wanted to, and just pump it up for 100 minutes, which is only, what, 75, 80, so 580, so that'd be another 25 minutes. Another 25 minutes in the pressure canner for chicken ain't gonna kill it. It's not gonna hurt it. What's it gonna do? Right, it's not, the jars won't explode, right? As long as your lid can, you don't tighten it too light, it will be fine. So I could still can the chicken, leftover chicken, the chicken thighs, and the fish in a separate canner. So I'd have 2 canning sessions, one for stock, fish and chicken claws, and the other one would be chicken thighs and maybe bits and pieces of fish with a broth, whether it's a water with a vegetable. Like I said, I don't have to use the collagen, because you want to keep the collagen separate and incorporate it into his meals, where the fish itself, you could do the fish with a water with vegetable stock, powdered vegetable stock, and I got a lot of that around the house, just to give it a bit of flavor. Right? Depending if I keep it raw. Because I could can the fish. Well, I'd have to still can the chicken. So do the chicken first. I'll probably put everything together in one pot. Shoot for that high density collagen. Strain it, put the chicken in the fridge, put the stock in the fridge. The next day or the day after that, I'd have to do the fish, which is a lower cooking time, right? No more than a couple of 2, 3, 4 hours, if not less than that. I'm going to double read on that one. And then I'd can the stock ASAP, and then the day after that I do the chicken. And the chicken will sit in the fridge cooked, like the thighs, at least 2 days. So it's all, you have to time it. You have to time it, right? It's all timing. Where I slip is as I'm doing all that, right? I get tired. Like in terms of the dishes and the laundry, and I'll be doing this and I'll be doing that, and I'll be cooking on the stove, stewing or whatever, and then I have to put it in the fridge, and then I think, okay, I'll get up and can tonight, can it tonight. Tonight will come. In the good old days, I just crash. In like good old days, I could do an 18-hour shift with that. Uncle John, like I said before, in the past with my videos, he'd come out at 6 o'clock in the morning and, "You're still canning?" I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm still canning." And he went to bed at midnight, so, because I was doing back to back to back, right? Where, I fall asleep and then I don't get it done that night, but I try and get up and do it. But then if something happens and I get distracted, but it is what it is. I think, well, it's too late now. I already put the order in. I think it's worth a shot. I think it's worth a shot to try and do this. If I like the results in terms of the amount of jars that I get from it, which I don't think it's going to be very much. I should have doubled the batch of chicken legs, but I didn't want to overdo it because I've never done it before. But my instincts told me to buy twice the amount of chicken feet. Yeah. But then I compensated it with the chicken thighs. So it should still be okay. Because you get collagen from meat too, It's not just from bones, right? The secret is not to overinflate it with a whole bunch of liquid. Just, right. Either or, it's going to be superfood. One way or another, it's going to be a superfood for Amari. And then after that's done, I give myself a week to do it. That's cleaning, everything. All of it, from start to finish. And it'll be even probably less than a week, because I'm working with sensitive foods. So within 4 days, it should be done. From start to finish. And that's cleaning and putting everything away. The canner and da-da-da-da-da-da. Maybe the jars might not be put away, but, you know, I'll cross that bridge when I get to it. And then, that's when I'm going to focus on the porch and the yard first, before I do the basement. And then, more than likely, I'll be harassed by these social workers, and it might get ugly. Because I'm not going to be doing what they want me to do, because I can't. I can't. I just can't. There's no reason for it outside of bullies acting like bullies. Right? And you can't assume that I'm going to need a gurney anytime soon, because that could be for anybody at any time in their life. A person can get injured or die at any point in their life, and nobody has a crystal ball to say when you need a gurney. And if they really wanted to get a gurney in here, which I doubt that they would want to, they could simply take my body out in a freaking hammock. It wouldn't be that hard to move a couple of things so that they could do that. As for Amari, we're at the point now where the next, he might not have a seizure for another year, right? I mean, that was his pattern. So, the next time we try that new medication, we go to the hospital. We've never had no mishaps through that process, so they can't say that we, are jeopardizing him, because we're not. And as long as he's not allergic to it, he has a seizure, and all we have to do is monitor him to make sure that after the medication that he's not turning blue. His lips aren't turning blue, and he's breathing. As long as he's breathing and his lips aren't turning blue, chances are he'll wake up in a couple of hours. Everything will be good, because we've done it enough times to know. And if he did turn blue and it wasn't, I'd be grabbing him, going outside, meeting the freaking ambulance as they're driving up, and that's just the fact. Yeah, that's just a fact. With or without the path, I got that heart of steel, man. Okay, it's not a fucking joke what I do here. Okay, I don't appreciate being, I don't want to call it punked off, but it kind of feels like I'm being punked off here, right? Well, right, you know what I'm saying? It's enough that you guys did what you did with Sierra, but I'm not Sierra. I'm not running the fucking streets here. I'm not doing drugs. Not that Sierra was doing drugs, because she wasn't. Not at that time, she wasn't. No. She just wasn't coming home because she wanted to stay away from Joan. And I mean, I was being already overworked back in those days, but I didn't see it for what it was. I should have just gave her more time. And when the social workers came and said, "Well, what's going on with Sierra?" Well, I'm watching Andre at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm asking her to come home. She's not. That was the excuse for them to kick her out, to teach her a lesson that she needed to come home. And look what happened. Look what happened to her. Well, you going to force me out of my house? You think I'm just going to end up like Sierra? No, I don't think so. And if I do, I'm going to be loud and proud about it, people. I'll be freaking loud and proud about it. I'll be sitting on the cement. I'll go get myself a little cell phone with my little $400 welfare check. Right? You know what I'm saying? And I'll do live streams on the cement. Yeah. Well, this is where I am now. You can thank the social workers for that one. Yeah. All because I wanted to make deep, rich collagen stock for my grandson. Yeah. And I didn't give away my VCRs because you told me to. Yeah. That's what it's going to boil down to. if it gets that way. So if I'm going to make it, I better make it now, because I'll never get another chance. If things calm down, work themselves out, and they appreciate what I do in a damn day, right? And, you know, whatever, then if I like what I make for Amari, and I find that it was worth spending $100 for quality food, because some of that fish is expensive, right? And, you know, I take the time to do what I do with it in order to make it available for convenience purposes, as well as for that uptake with those nutrients that come with collagen from fish skins and bones and chicken feet, including meat. If I like the product and I get enough jars out of it, then yeah, I'll do it again when they start running low. And I'll try and incorporate them at least 1 to 2 jars a week. I mean, ideally, that doctor said every day, but, you know, I'm only one person. I could only do so much. And, you know, I don't know how much you'd get for $100. I won't know how much product I'm going to get. Right? Because you're looking for specific parts of the fish. Because it's the fish that's the most expensive. But you want the fish skin and the bones. If you can't find fish, settle just for chicken feet. If you can't find chicken feet, then go look for fish with skin on it, and go for the white fish. Yeah. Stay away from the oily fish. Okay. So that's the end of this video.